Ethan Cole had never raised his voice at me. Not once in 3 years of marriage. Then I put a gray scarf around my neck. I found it on a Saturday afternoon while reorganizing the walk-in closet in our Manhattan apartment. It was hidden in the back of the lowest drawer, beneath 2 folded sweaters Ethan had not worn in years. The scarf had been washed carefully and folded into a perfect rectangle. The wool had softened with age, and one corner was slightly frayed, as if someone had held onto it for a very long time. I assumed it was something Ethan had forgotten about. He was in the kitchen chopping vegetables for dinner when I walked in wearing it. "This is beautiful," I said, smiling as I adjusted the ends over my sweater. "Can I have it?" "You never wear it." Ethan looked up. The warmth vanished from his face so quickly that for a second, I thought I had imagined it. Then he set the knife down and crossed the kitchen in 3 hard steps. He grabbed the scarf and yanked it from my neck. The rough wool scraped across my skin. A sharp burn spread beneath my jaw. "Who told you that you could touch this?" I stared at him. Ethan did not seem to notice my expression. He lowered his eyes to the scarf, checking it for damage. His fingers smoothed the wrinkles I had made with almost reverent care. "I just thought it was pretty," I said. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted it to. "Is it important to you?" His jaw tightened. "Emma Bennett, you're not a child. You don't take other people's things without asking. I shouldn't have to explain basic boundaries to you." Every word landed like a needle. He usually called me Emma, sweetheart, or love. He only used my full name when he was truly angry. But I still did not understand what I had done. My gaze drifted past him to the living room sofa. A dark blue scarf lay there, half buried beneath a newspaper. I had knitted it for Ethan's birthday the previous winter. I had stayed up several nights to finish it, pricking my fingers so often that I eventually kept bandages beside the yarn. When I gave it to him, he had pulled me into his arms and told me he loved it. He had never worn it. Not once. Ethan folded the gray scarf again and carried it toward his study. "I still have work to finish," he said. "Go to bed without me." The door closed between us. I stood in the hallway for a long time. Only when the burning in my neck grew worse did I walk to the mirror. A red line curved across the side of my throat. There had been a time when a paper cut was enough to make Ethan open the first aid kit. He would clean my finger, press on a bandage, and ask me 3 times whether it hurt. Now he was 10 feet away, behind a closed door, and had not looked back once. I barely slept that night. Ethan and I had met at a Sunday brunch arranged by friends of both our families. It was supposed to be casual. If we had nothing to say to each other, we could finish our coffee and leave without embarrassment. Instead, we stayed for nearly 4 hours. He was 5 years older than me and had already founded a corporate strategy firm in Manhattan. I had just graduated and was working as a junior account coordinator at a branding studio. Ethan seemed to know how everything worked. When I made a mistake on the first project I managed alone, he helped me break down the problem and rebuild the presentation. When I had a conflict with a coworker, he coached me through exactly what to say. He was calm, patient, and decisive. Beside him, life seemed easier. We dated, fell in love, and married as if we were following a script written for 2 sensible people who had finally found the right match. Our friends envied me. They told me I had married a handsome, successful man who knew how to take care of a woman. For a long time, I believed that was what Ethan was doing. Taking care of me. The gray scarf was the first time I wondered whether his tenderness had conditions. When I woke the next morning, Ethan was gone. There was no breakfast waiting, no message explaining where he had gone, and no apology for the night before. That evening, I went to my friend Leah's engagement party in Brooklyn. Leah had attended college with Ethan. Claire Morgan had recently returned to New York and reconnected with several people from their old circle, including Leah. No one had mentioned that she would be there. The party occupied the long communal table at the back of a restaurant. About a dozen people were already seated when I arrived. As soon as I sat down, I felt someone watching me. The woman across from me was striking. Long dark hair, a white wool coat, and the kind of quiet elegance that made people lower their voices around her. She smiled politely. I smiled back. Then I saw the scarf around her neck. It was cream-colored, but the stitch pattern was identical to Ethan's gray scarf. The same braided panels. The same narrow border. The same hand-finished edges. The 2 scarves looked like a pair. I told myself it could be a coincidence. Thousands of people use the same patterns. I was not going to accuse my husband of anything because of a piece of wool. Then the woman beside her touched the fringe. Claire, where did you buy that? It's gorgeous. Claire smiled and ran her fingers over the edge. You can't buy it. I knitted it in college. My hand tightened around my water glass. Claire Morgan. I had heard the name once at a gathering with Ethan's college friends. Someone had been drinking and started to mention Ethan's long-term girlfriend from those years. Before he could finish, another friend cut him off. Later, Ethan told me it was ancient history and there was no reason to discuss it. I believed him. For the rest of the party, every conversation sounded as if it were happening behind glass. When the dinner finally ended, I stepped outside and saw Ethan under a street lamp. He wore a black overcoat. Around his neck was the dark blue scarf I had made for him. It was the first time he had ever worn it. For one foolish second, hope rose in me. Maybe he had come to pick me up. Maybe the scarf was his way of apologizing. I walked toward him. Ethan passed me without slowing down. Ethan. Claire stood at the top of the restaurant steps, her eyes already shining. I thought you weren't coming, she said. It's been a long time. Ethan stopped. His shoulders went rigid. Several seconds passed before he spoke. When did you get back? 2 days ago. Claire gave him an unsteady smile. I wasn't planning to contact you this soon, but I haven't been doing very well. Only then did she glance at me, as if remembering I existed. This must be your wife. Ethan did not introduce us. He turned, came back to me, and closed his hand around my wrist. Get in the car. His grip was so tight that when I tried to pull away, pain shot up my arm. He did not speak until we were several blocks away. I was the one who broke the silence. The gray scarf was Claire's, wasn't it? Ethan kept his eyes on the road. Why were you at that party? Because Leah invited me. Did you know Claire would be there? It took me a moment to understand what he was asking. You think I went there on purpose? She just returned to New York, and she's emotionally unstable. His voice was low and controlled. I didn't want you confronting her tonight. Cold spread through my chest. Your ex-girlfriend wore a matching scarf to a party in front of me. You haven't explained anything, but your first concern is whether I might upset her. It was something from college. That's all. Then why did you react as if I had put my hands on something sacred? He slammed on the brakes. The car stopped beside a quiet, tree-lined street. Emma, stop making this uglier than it is. Am I making it ugly, or are you? His hands tightened around the steering wheel. Claire's been in treatment for anxiety and panic attacks. She returned to New York for work. She did not come here to destroy our marriage. So you're going to start taking care of her again? I'm someone she trusts. I looked at him. You're also my husband. The car went silent. Ethan did not answer. In that silence, I heard one anyway. I got out and ordered a ride to a hotel. By midnight, I was shivering beneath 2 blankets. The next morning, I walked to a medical center 2 blocks away. It accepted my insurance, and I was too weak to search for another clinic. The doctor diagnosed influenza and dehydration and kept me for fluids. As I sat at the end of the hallway, I remembered another night years earlier when I had gone to the emergency room with a high fever. There had been no beds, so Ethan held me against his chest for 3 hours. He had gone out into the freezing night to buy a blanket and hand warmers. Back then, I thought being loved by him was the safest thing in the world. After the 4 finished, I carried my insurance paperwork toward the front desk. I turned the corner and saw Claire crying against Ethan's shoulder. One of his arms was around her back. His other hand moved gently over her hair. His voice had the same patient softness he used to reserve for me. Claire saw me first. She pulled away at once. Emma, please don't misunderstand. Her eyes were red. I had a severe panic attack last night. I couldn't breathe. When I was in treatment in Paris, my doctor told me to identify a trusted emergency contact in every city where I lived. I don't have family in New York. Ethan was the only person I could call. Ethan shifted in front of her, as if shielding her from me. Only then did he seem to notice my pale face. Why are you here? I have the flu. His expression changed, but he did not move toward me. Claire caught his sleeve. Her breathing quickened again. Ethan turned back immediately. I no longer had the strength to argue. Stay with her, I said. I walked away. Ethan did not follow. 30 minutes later, a message appeared on my phone. Claire's condition is more serious than you realize. Your attitude today added to her distress. I hope you can show some basic compassion next time. I stood outside the medical center, reading the words while nausea twisted through me. Claire's illness deserved professional treatment. It did not require my husband to behave like her partner. And it did not make me responsible for every feeling she had. I did not reply. That evening, Daniel Reed sent me a link to a public social media page. Daniel had been one of Ethan's college friends. I had met him only a handful of times. His message was brief. I'm sorry. I debated whether to send this, but I think you deserve to see what is already public. The link led to Claire's recently reactivated account. She had reposted an old video from a college alumni archive. 22-year-old Ethan stood outside the university library wearing a white shirt and holding a bouquet of white roses. Behind him, cherry trees covered the lawn in pale pink blossoms. Someone behind the camera teased him about being nervous. His ears turned red, but he kept looking ahead. When Claire walked into frame, he held out the flowers. I want to spend every spring after this one watching the cherry blossoms with you. Claire burst into tears and threw her arms around him. The caption beneath the video contained one sentence. Some springs arrive years too late. I watched it 3 times. Ethan had been romantic with me, but his romance was careful. Reservations. Gifts. Plans made weeks in advance. Everything polished, tasteful, and safe. I had assumed he simply was not a passionate man. I had been wrong. He had loved someone recklessly once. It just had not been me. I wrote to Daniel. Why did they break up? His answer came several minutes later. Claire moved to Paris after graduation. She refused to try long distance and ended the relationship. Ethan took a long time to recover. I stared at the words "ended the relationship." Suddenly I understood why Ethan had preserved the scarf. It was not a sentimental memory. It was unfinished humiliation. Claire's return had given him the chance to rewrite the ending. I did not go home and confront him. The next morning, I took half a day off and met with a Manhattan attorney who specialized in divorce and complex marital assets. She listened without interrupting. Then she told me something I needed to hear. Suspicion and heartbreak were not legal preparation. Before leaving the apartment, I needed copies of our tax returns, joint account records, property documents, insurance policies, and any information about business interests acquired during the marriage. I also needed to secure my identification, personal savings, and a safe place to live. For the first time, I examined our finances without Ethan beside me. He had always managed most of our investments. He said my job was demanding enough, and there was no reason for me to worry about portfolios, tax strategies, or company documents. I had accepted that arrangement because it felt like care. Now I realized I could not even describe the full scope of our marital assets. I copied what I needed, moved my passport and important belongings to a friend's apartment, and logged into the application portal for a university in London. Years earlier, before our wedding, I had received a conditional offer for its master's program in brand strategy. The offer had long since expired. I would have to rebuild my application from the beginning. When I received it the first time, Ethan had explained that maintaining a marriage across the Atlantic for 2 years was unrealistic. He said leaving my New York job for a degree made little sense. He could teach me more about the industry than any classroom could. He had analyzed every advantage and disadvantage. He had never asked whether London was the life I wanted. A few days later, Daniel asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. I didn't send you that video because I wanted you to make a decision overnight, he said after we sat down. I sent it because I didn't want everyone else to know the history while you were being asked to make concessions without it. I looked down at my cup. Thank you. What are you going to do? Handle it myself. He nodded and did not ask another question. Rain had started by the time we left. Daniel took a spare jacket from his car and held it out to me. Take it. You look like you're still recovering. I almost refused. Then another gust of cold rain hit the sidewalk and I slipped it on. When I returned to the apartment, Ethan was waiting in the living room. His gaze went straight to the men's jacket on my shoulders. Who are you with? Daniel. His expression darkened. He crossed the room, pulled the jacket off me, and threw it onto the sofa. Why was he driving you home? When did the two of you become close? I looked at the jealousy in his face and almost laughed. You can leave in the middle of the night for Claire. You can hold her in a hospital. You can accuse me of lacking compassion because I didn't make her comfortable. But Daniel lends me a jacket and suddenly you care about boundaries. That is not the same thing. Why not? Claire was sick. So was I. He stopped. I held his gaze. Do you know how high my fever was? His mouth opened. No answer came. I walked past him into the bedroom and pulled the packed suitcase from beneath the bed. For the first time, fear appeared on his face. Where are you going? I'm moving out. My attorney will contact you about the divorce. He stared at me as if the words were in a language he did not understand. Then he put one hand on the suitcase. You're divorcing me because I went to a hospital with her? This is not about one hug. And it isn't about one scarf. I looked directly at him. Every time Claire is involved, you assume I should be the reasonable one. She is allowed to be fragile. I am not. If she calls, you have to go. If I'm hurt, sick, or afraid, I have to prove first that my feelings won't make her condition worse. I never meant to hurt you. You did anyway. Emma, nothing happened between us. Then call her now. Tell her she needs to choose someone else as her emergency contact. Tell her not to contact you at night, not to use your old relationship as a reason to cross into our marriage, and not to post messages about Springs arriving late. Ethan went still. I waited. He said nothing. Those few seconds ended something inside me. Do you still love her? I asked. He looked away. Feelings aren't that simple. No one loves another person with 100% purity. My throat closed. I did. He looked back at me. Every day I was with you, I loved only you, I said. That is why I cannot stay in a marriage where I have to share my husband with a memory. The composure in Ethan's face finally broke. I'll fix this. Just give me time. I already gave you 3 years. I pulled the suitcase toward the door. He stepped in front of me. You really don't want me anymore? Tears slipped down my face. I did not wipe them away. When loving someone requires you to lower your standards again and again, eventually even the deepest love runs out. I walked around him. This time, he did not grab my wrist. I took the earliest flight I could find to Seattle. My parents were waiting at the airport. The moment my mother saw me, she opened her arms. Neither of them asked for an explanation. My father took my suitcase, and my mother held me while I cried against her shoulder. You're home, she kept saying. That's what matters. I was not crying because I wanted Ethan back. I was crying because I had finally admitted that the happiness I had protected so fiercely had never been as secure as I thought. Over the next several weeks, I worked with my attorney, rebuilt my university application, and started creating a life that did not depend on Ethan's decisions. I took 2 weeks of medical leave from the branding studio, then arranged to finish my active projects remotely. My manager gave me a month to deal with my personal circumstances. When the new offer from London arrived, I submitted my resignation and completed a full handoff. My attorney also helped secure temporary support while the divorce was pending. Between that and my savings, I did not need to ask Ethan for private favors. I did not surrender the property I was legally entitled to. I also refused the extra compensation Ethan tried to offer. My attorney asked me why I was drawing the line there. I'll take what is mine, I said. I won't take money he offers because he feels guilty. It was not pride. It was the first time I had clearly understood the difference between a right and a leash. A week after I returned to Seattle, Daniel messaged me. He was a partner at a corporate risk consulting firm and would be in town for a client project. If you're comfortable, we could have coffee. I chose an independent bookstore I had loved in high school. The owner still remembered me. She laughed and told Daniel that I used to sit by the front window for entire afternoons with one book and the cheapest tea on the menu. While we talked, Daniel mentioned wanting to visit his old school before he left town. You went in Northridge? I asked. Only for my senior year. You were a freshman. I searched his face, trying to place him. He smiled. You gave a speech at the student welcome assembly. I barely remembered the assembly, much less what I had said. Daniel did. You said courage didn't mean never falling. It meant remembering how to stand up every time you did. My eyes burned. During our marriage, Ethan had often said I was not quite experienced enough to make major decisions without someone checking my reasoning. Over time, I had begun to believe that if I lost his judgment, I would make a mess of my life. But before I knew him, I had once stood in front of hundreds of people and spoken with confidence about choosing my own future. I think I lost that version of myself, I said. Daniel did not tell me I was still that girl. He did not promise to help me become her again. He only said, then take your time finding her. During the few days he was in Seattle, we occasionally had dinner or walked through the neighborhood near the school. I told him clearly that I did not want another relationship. I'm not asking you for one, he said. Then why are you being so kind to me? He considered the question before answering. Because I liked you once. And because liking someone doesn't give you the right to demand an answer while they're wounded. I did not respond to the confession. Daniel did not mention it again. Once my attorney filed the divorce petition, Ethan and I entered financial disclosure and mediation. At first, he called to explain. Then he called to apologize. Eventually, he started calling to talk about our first apartment, the trip we took after our wedding, and the way I used to fall asleep on the sofa while waiting for him to come home. I stopped answering and instructed him to communicate through counsel. 2 months later, I returned to New York for our first formal mediation session. Afterward, Ethan said there were a few personal items at the apartment that required my confirmation, along with an additional property proposal he wanted me to review. My attorney advised me not to go alone. I arranged for a legal assistant to wait downstairs and told Ethan in writing that I would stay no longer than 20 minutes. The apartment looked almost exactly as I had left it. My slippers were still beside the door. My favorite mug sat on the dining table. Even the throw blanket I used on the sofa remained folded over the same armrest. Ethan looked thinner. Dark shadows had settled beneath his eyes. Do you want something to drink? He asked carefully. I still have the juice you like. No. Where are the documents? He placed a folder in front of me. In addition to the settlement calculated through mediation, he had offered me another property and a substantial cash payment. I closed the folder. I'm not accepting this. I owe you. The marital property I am entitled to has already been calculated. The rest isn't repayment. It's another attempt to use resources to shape what happens to me. His face lost color. I only want to know you'll be all right. I will make sure I'm all right. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Ethan said, I ended contact with Claire. I told her she couldn't call me anymore. I waited. I understand it now, he continued. I wasn't holding on to her. I was holding on to the humiliation of being abandoned. I confused unfinished anger with love. And you sacrificed my sense of safety to protect that anger. His voice roughened. I regret it. Emma, please. We could start again. I shook my head. He leaned forward, desperate now. No one knows you the way I do. I know your habits, your health, the way you work. Moving to London alone means visas, housing, a new industry, a different system. Without my help, you'll make mistakes you don't have to make. In that moment, all the confusion left me. Even while begging me to return, Ethan still believed I could not live without his supervision. You have always believed you loved me, I said. I pushed the folder back across the table. But what you loved was a wife who needed your advice, depended on your access, and looked up at you for every answer. The moment I started making my own decisions, you called it anger. That isn't what I meant. It is what you meant. I stood. You gave me comfort, Ethan. You gave me guidance. But you never truly treated me as your equal. Claire did not destroy our marriage. She only made me see it sooner. At the door, he asked, did you get into the program? Yes. For once, Ethan had nothing to say. 5 months after the petition was filed, we completed the financial settlement in mediation. A few weeks later, the judge signed the final judgment of divorce. On the day I went to the New York County Supreme Court in Lower Manhattan to collect a certified copy, I saw Claire in the lobby. She wore a white dress beneath a fitted coat, as if she had dressed for an occasion. Miss Bennet, she said, stepping into my path. Her smile was soft and sharp at the same time. I heard you're moving to London. Maybe that's for the best. Ethan won't have to feel torn anymore. I looked at her. You misunderstood the divorce. It wasn't filed to make room for you. Her fingers rose to the cream scarf around her neck. We were always supposed to be together. If I hadn't gone to Paris, you never would have had the chance to marry him. Then you should be grateful I tested the theory for you, I said. He isn't a man you should be trying to start over with. Her smile froze. A door opened across the lobby. Ethan stepped out of an office, heard the last sentence, and came toward us. "Why are you here?" he asked Claire. "I didn't tell you today's schedule." She immediately caught his arm. "Mark mentioned it. I thought I could pick you up. Everything is final now, so we don't have to worry about upsetting her anymore. Right?" Ethan pulled his arm free. "I told you there will be no relationship between us." Claire stared at him. "You divorced her because you still love me." "No." His gaze moved past her to me. "I lost my marriage because I never learned how to respect my wife." Something in Claire's face changed. "What about me? I came back to New York for you. I reconnected with everyone for you. I posted our video. You kept my scarf. Every time I had an attack, you came." "I kept the scarf because I could not admit that you had rejected me," Ethan said quietly. "I came when you called because I felt guilty and because part of me enjoyed being needed by you again. But that wasn't love." Claire's breathing turned ragged. "It wasn't love?" She swung toward me. "This is your fault. If you had never appeared, he would not be treating me like this." She lunged. Her hands struck my shoulders, but I had already seen the movement. I stepped aside and caught her wrist when she raised it again. She twisted against my grip, shouting that I had destroyed their love. I did not hit her. I did not step back. "Your illness deserves real treatment," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But you are still responsible for your choices." "I didn't destroy anything. You treated him like someone you could abandon and reclaim whenever you wanted. He treated his resentment like proof of love. Their consequences are not my responsibility." Court security reached us within seconds and separated her from me. My attorney preserved the lobby footage and filed an incident report with building security. That afternoon, she sent Claire a formal cease and desist notice. If Claire contacted, approached, or threatened me again, we would seek an order of protection. Ethan stood several feet away. He started toward me, then stopped himself. "Emma." I turned. His eyes were red, but his voice was quiet. "Have a safe trip." I nodded. "Goodbye, Ethan." Outside the courthouse, Daniel waited across the street. He had not entered the restricted area. He had not called to ask whether I needed rescuing. He was there because I had asked him to drive me to Kennedy Airport. My flight to London left that evening. Once we were in the car, he asked, "Do you need to report what happened to the police?" The attorney preserved the footage. "If Claire comes near me again, we'll seek a protection order." Daniel nodded. "You handled it well." He did not take over the situation or question my judgment. He simply acknowledged that I had already protected myself. On the way to the airport, my mother video called with tears in her eyes and reminded me to eat properly. My father made me show him my passport and admission documents 3 separate times. At security, Daniel remained a few steps away. He did not ask me to stay. When my line began moving, he said, "Message when you land." "I will, Emma." I looked back. His expression was warm and serious. "This time, live the life you chose." I smiled and lifted one hand in goodbye. London was not easy. The coursework was more demanding than I expected. Renting an apartment, maintaining my visa, and learning a new professional culture made ordinary days feel like exams. After my first class presentation, a professor told me in front of everyone that my argument lacked structure. I locked myself in a bathroom stall and cried for 10 minutes. During my first independent project, I worked through several nights and still nearly missed the deadline. But every problem I solved proved something important. I had never been incapable of living without Ethan. I had simply spent too long without the chance to make mistakes of my own. Daniel sent messages occasionally. We shared photographs of bad weather, difficult clients, meals we had ruined, and small victories no one else would understand. He never asked when I was returning to the United States. He never demanded that I define what we were. One winter night, I developed another case of the flu and sent him a rambling voice message while half asleep. He did not immediately buy a plane ticket or begin issuing instructions. He helped me contact a local medical service, confirmed that my roommate was home, and arranged for medicine and food to be delivered. Before ending the call, he said, "Sleep. Tell me how you feel when you wake up. If you need me there, I'll change my schedule." By morning, my fever had dropped. I stood at the door looking at the medicine and hot soup he had sent and understood something I had once missed. Care did not require taking control of another person's life. A year and a half later, I completed my master's degree with honors and accepted an offer from an international brand consultancy in London. My parents came to graduation. So did Daniel. He stood among the crowd holding a simple bouquet. No dramatic declaration. No plan for what I should do next. After the photographs, we walked along the river. "Do you still like me?" I asked. He laughed softly. "I do. I'm staying in London. My job may require a lot of travel. I don't need anyone to save me, and I'm not giving up my plans for a relationship." "I know. Those decisions belong to you." I stopped walking. "Then would you be willing to meet me again?" Not as the woman leaving a marriage. As an equal partner. His smile brightened. "I'd be honored." We did not rush toward marriage. He had his projects. I had my work. We disagreed, sometimes sharply, and learned how to put the real issue on the table instead of trying to win. During our first serious argument, I found myself waiting for him to tell me what the correct answer was. Daniel asked, "What outcome do you actually want?" I told him. "Then let's start there," he said. That was when I knew. 2 years later, he proposed during an ordinary weekend trip. No crowd. No orchestra. No speech designed for social media. Just the two of us, standing beside a cold lake while he asked whether I wanted to keep choosing a life together. I said yes. We planned the wedding at a glass chapel beside a lake near Seattle. The night before the ceremony, I returned home from the party my friends had arranged and saw a number on my phone that had not appeared in a long time. I hesitated, then answered. "Emma," Ethan said. "I heard you're getting married tomorrow. Congratulations." "Thank you." Silence stretched between us. Then he asked, after one marriage failed, "Aren't you afraid?" I looked through the window at the streets where I had grown up. I was afraid. But failure didn't prove I was unworthy of love. It taught me that love should not require me to disappear. His breath caught. "I'm sorry," he said. "Do you think you can forgive me? I stopped hating you a long time ago. But forgiveness doesn't mean returning." Another silence. "I know," he said. "I hope you have a happy marriage, Emma." "Thank you. I hope you learn how to love someone well someday." After the call ended, a message from Daniel appeared. "Home safe? See you tomorrow." I smiled at the 3 simple words. I had once believed marriage meant finding someone stronger than me and letting him explain how life should be lived. Now I knew that the right partner did not choose my direction. He stood beside me after I chose it. The next afternoon, I walked down the wooden aisle in my wedding dress. Sunlight poured through the glass walls of the chapel. Daniel waited at the far end, looking at me as if there were no one else in the room. I was not escaping one failed marriage by running into another man's arms. I had crossed the distance on my own. And now, whole and fully awake, I was choosing him.